Hello, this is Professor Anthony Rizzi of the Institute for Advanced Physics on Faith Matters. I want to talk to you now about Star Trek III. Star Trek, as you're aware, is an early 60s show that contains some of these natural law things as the 60s writers still had in their heads. And it was maintained into the movies, even though they were actually in the 80s. These thoughts were still maintained to some degree. And as you recall, if you've seen the show, or if not, I'll tell you, that at the end of Star Trek II, the Enterprise is in a situation in which the ship is going to be exploding, killing all the inhabitants, 400 inhabitants. And Spock goes into the chamber knowing that he'll probably be killed to save the people from this fate. And Kirk asks him, Captain Kirk asks him, why would you do such a thing? And he says, because the good of the many outweighs the good of the one. And this really shoots off Star Trek III. Star Trek III is about, and this is one of the places where I have to give you a warning, there are actually pieces within Star Trek III that need to be sort of excised because they're wrong and they're not logical and they're against the faith. Because in this show, Spock comes back from the dead by some natural means, and that, of course, couldn't happen. Of course, we will come back by supernatural means, but this is not the point that I want to get to. In this show, the whole point is Spock is dead, but not really. And that they can, by their actions, they can actually bring him back. And what happens is Kirk and McCoy are uniquely involved in this, and Captain Kirk says this to his friend, that he's getting ready to violate Starfleet orders and basically end his career. And he says this, he says, if my friend has an eternal soul, it's my job to take care of it. Which of course is true. We are our brother's keeper. And he proceeds to do a series of things that jeopardize him and his fellows' whole lives. And when they get to the point where they have to decide about the fate of Spock, McCoy is deeply involved in this, and he is asked by the representative, who is here that's going to help bring Spock back? And do you know that you will die probably in this process? And McCoy stands up. He says, McCoy, son of David. Now, that's an image, of course, of the Messiah of Christ, which is what he did for us. He offers our life to save our eternal souls. This is a deep Christian imagery at the heart of the show. And it continues because after Spock comes back, Spock's father says, why did you do this for Spock? He says, well, he's my friend, and you would do the same for me. He would do the same for me. He said, but at such cost. Your career. The Enterprise was blown up. You lost your only son. And Captain Kirk replies, because, and Spock is also asking this question, because the good of the one outweighs the good of the many. That's the Christian thought. That's why we as a society are willing to go to the wall for each little unborn baby. That is the heart of that show. I encourage you to watch such shows, excise the parts that are wrong, but emphasize the parts that are right. These pre-65 shows go back to the originals as opposed to the 80s, and you can have a lot to learn from them. Thank you for listening on Faith Matters.